Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thought to Action, presented by the London Center for Policy Research, where we delve deeply into important issues, examine ideas, discuss solutions, and put forth thoughts to action. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer, retired, president of the London Center for Policy Research, and we are here to talk about a key issue of accountability. If you enjoy our content and our videos, please subscribe to our Patreon community at patreon.com/thought to action. Patrons are able to preview Thought to Action podcasts, as well as participate in our Ask Us Anything question and answer sessions. Also, please subscribe to us on Thought to Action YouTube and check us out and monitor us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course our website, londoncenter.org. So today we're going to be talking about accountability. This has been something that the London Center has been engaged in pretty much from day one in a variety of ways. We now currently have established an accountability project, which focuses on the spectrum of issues that relate to improper prosecutions, improper use of government resources, and whistleblowing. Recently, as some of you may recall, I was engaged in post-election interviewing and screening of whistleblowers, some of which made very clear statements of observations of wrongdoing, which have not yet been resolved. These things are what we work to monitor, resolve, and try to help gain accountability for. So today we're being joined by someone who has been intimately involved in whistleblowing. And I think it's notable that he himself has gone through a lot of difficulty, a lot of challenges in his life based on his seeking integrity, seeking the truth. So we're joined today by John Smith. John, thank you for joining us today on Thought to Action.
Thanks very much, Tony. I'm glad to be here.
So John, if you could just kind of go through a little bit about your biography, who you are, why you're here, and then I'd like to talk a little bit about your book, Embracing the Abyss.
Okay. I'm here because I have a presidential pardon. I know that it was a tough nut, but I got it.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. It was all part of the becoming a government witness after I had been prosecuted back in the SNL days. Mm-hmm. And in that prosecution, I was granted probation by the judge. And that then triggered my opportunity to, I guess, get even, because when I was at the SNL, they hid things from me.
Right.
And as a result of that, I made a perfect witness for the Justice Department. And in doing so, I got to meet them, see them, work with them, lots of trials, civil and criminal. And then after 15 years, one of the chief FBI agent asked me to lunch, and I said, sure, why not? And he said, we want you to know that you're the guy that we should not have prosecuted. And we all agree, we should never have prosecuted you. Now, of course, you could have scraped me off the table at the time, but it became a reality in a period of about, I guess, 7 years.
Yeah.
I was made my own application. I hand wrote it, pardon application, and in that process, the hard thing about that is that it's like Yogi used to say about the things that you have to do over and over and over to get it done.
Right.
And I did. And actually, I had assigned me to a pardon attorney, and her name was Hope. Can't get any better than that.
Apparently it worked.
Yeah, it was good. Every Thanksgiving, I'd call her on the phone and ask her if she said, I can't tell you anything about your application. I said, yes, ma'am, I understand. And she said, but you can keep calling if you want to. I said, well, I'm calling just to make sure that my application is not in the trash can yet.
Yeah.
and you never know.
Oh yeah, no. I'm familiar with the process just a bit, having been on the periphery of it. So, but that's part of, I guess, I have a two-part question for you. First, John, based on the hardship you had to go through to get to the point of where you're at now, would you do it again? And secondly, if you would do it again, would you do anything different?
Of course, I'd do it again, but the situation would be one that I wouldn't have to pound myself every morning that I woke up,
Yeah,
basically saying, "How did you get yourself into this? You know, how does this happen?"
yeah,
Because then everybody believes you're guilty. And of course, when that FBI task force came to Dallas, it didn't matter if you were a loan officer or a billing clerk or a secretary. You know, if you worked there, then you were in on it and knew all about it,
right,
which was a tough obstacle to get beyond.
yeah.
Um,
So on that point, this is something that I think the audience doesn't always recognize. And I think it's important for people like you and myself who've been down this path to understand that so often the motivation to move forward is not because there's any guarantee of benefit. As a matter of fact, I would argue the very thing you just talked about, the psychological uh, price you pay for essentially being presumed guilty, when many of us who are just trying to do the right thing, it's like, no, I'm just trying to tell the truth. Tell us about how you were able to overcome that abyss, if you will, of getting through. I mean, this is, people don't
Right.
understand what a price people actually pay to get through this.
Right. It all goes back to my attorney. He's no longer with us, but he saved my life.
Hmm.
And in that process, I became a witness for the government.
Right.
He was the one that convinced me, because in all of my meetings with him, he would yell at me most of the time because I kept saying I didn't do anything,
Right.
and I'm going to beat those guys. I'm going to beat this. And he said, looked at me like I was six kinds of stupid, which I was, because I thought that I was so naive that I didn't do anything wrong. Why should I be, why should I go along with them convicting me of something?
Right.
And so I got lectures after lectures. I mean, the guy should have been a nun. He was slapping my hands with rulers and stuff, just to try and get my attention to wake up. And he convinced me, finally convinced me, that the only way that I was going to avoid going to prison would be to cross the Rubicon and become a member of the other camp, which I did.
Yeah.
And I was a good member of the other camp, and I took it serious in doing it, very serious.
Well, that's the thing. I think we all come to a point of recognition that the world may not be laid out before us in the black and white, good and evil terms that I think we're taught to believe in. And I know that during the time I became a whistleblower, I kind of had the same thing. It's like, why am I being essentially persecuted? I didn't do anything wrong. I actually tried to do the right thing. And it was a very big awakening for myself to recognize that, well, it doesn't really matter. It just, the system itself has a certain perception, and that perception is what is going to push the process forward. And I think that's a difficult thing for whistleblowers to accept. So at this point in time, I understand that you've now become an advocate for the truth, of trying to figure out
That's
the
right.
pursuit of it. So tell us about how you currently work that and to help people understand and do the right thing.
Well, I have a book. I wrote a book about my experiences, and the blurb on the book reads, "A true story of unknowingly becoming part of a fraud scandal,
That's great.
receiving a presidential pardon, and being surprised by a spiritual awakening."
Mm-hmm.
I for 30 years I had dropped little notes in boxes everywhere in the houses that I lived in. And finally, I reached a point to where I couldn't go anymore. I was about to bust.
Yeah.
I have to get this thing written, and I did. And it was a slow go. It was, and still is. If you've ever been an author, it's a new.
Oh yeah.
It's a new world. It's not what you think it is.
No, people don't understand that being an author literally has to be something you invest your soul in.
Right.
And I've written 2 books, both of which one was a New York Times best-selling book. I'm very proud and happy and blessed to have that happen. With that
Right.
said, man,
Right.
I had no idea that you'd be working literally 6 months every day for hours just to perfect it. And I think people, God bless you for doing that. The other thing I'd like to point out here, and again, we're a think tank, and we don't often discuss the spiritual aspects of reality. But look, I'm with you. I've recognized a long time ago that if not for certain levels of grace,
Yes.
of faith, I wouldn't be here. And as a retired operative, I lived a very dangerous life doing things which a lot of other people died doing. And I'm very proud of the fact that I survived, but I recognize that it was by the grace of God,
Right.
not because of my utter ability. It was more about the other faith I had that got me through this. And I think that's what has sustained me through my whistleblowing. You want to talk a little bit about the faith that's brought you
Yeah,
here and why that's important?
that works. That's all about that.
Yeah.
My interest though in that actually came back to my attorney. He basically saved me.
Wow.
And some metaphysical aspects were recognized that I didn't know much about, but I learned about them.
Mm-hmm.
And in that process, you know that you're on the right track or not.
Right.
It either you grab it and put your arms around it. That's why I call it the title of my book, Embracing the Abyss. I put your arms around it. I was in a speech class once, and the lady said, well, you should call it Avoid the Abyss. And I said, oh, no. You got to put your arms completely around this in order to get through it. And the abyss, Tony, is what I use as a portal to my soul. That's what the abyss did for me.
Right.
And of course, it comes from Friedrich Nietzsche about, when a man looks into the abyss looks back at the man.
Right.
Which is very famous.
Yeah. Well, my philosophy is a little bit different, but similar in that I've always been a fan of Apocalypse Now. And instead of the phrase, you must make a friend of horror, in my judgment, you must make a friend of chaos, because chaos is that which we must overcome and survive within. So I think the abyss analogy is apt, because I think it looks at us and we look back at it, and we make our path forward. So it's I appreciate analogy. So one last thing before we go. First off, I'd like to ask you to consider coming back and discussing with us in the future some of the other issues that relate to accountability. I think there's a number of tasks we are working as a center. I think your point of view would be very important to have added to what we talk about. And I'd like to also have you discuss your own podcast. Apparently you have your own podcast where you highlight the whistleblowing issues. You want to talk a little bit about that with us?
Oh yeah. It was a complete surprise to me. This is last summer, and in the process, how it all evolved. I was given an interview to it was the 50th anniversary of the Kent State shooting of the students, and I was interviewed, my first interview, and in my name show is called Searching for Integrity. Well, this man was awarded a Pulitzer Prize. His name was Bob Giles, and for all he did and all that he kept the truth together on that, it was so important. And I'm telling you, for 30 minutes I sat there just with goosebumps all over me.
Wow!
And I saw that at the time happen in real time. And it was actually difficult for me because I was taking an early out in order to go to college, but I got out 1 week after the Kent State shootings, and I thought, am I going to have a problem on campus? Yeah, what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen? I just didn't know. But I also helped the guy. It was amazing how people have still not figured out what happened there. And I told him, as we were winding up the interview, I told him that, when I was in the Army, I trained people. I was a drill sergeant.
Mhm.
And in that process, I know that you don't do anything without a command. If it's fire, then that's one of the commands. In this, there was no command.
Right.
And what we're dealing with, though, is basically people that, were not trained well. That's what it was. And Bob Giles said, I never thought about that. Sounds pretty good to me. But yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
People just decided to, go off on their own. But it was these were weekend warrior guys.
John, I appreciate the discussion we've had today regarding the whole series of issues relating to integrity, relating to spirituality, and relating to how each of us have to find our path to accountability. And I think so many of the personal choices we make at the individual level have great potential to affect everything. And you've been someone who's been down that path. By the little decisions you've made have affected big things. And I think this is something that people need to recognize. So I really hope that we can talk again about this sort of thing. And so we'll plan on doing that at some point. And again, I encourage people to check out John's book, Embracing the Abyss, and his podcast, Searching for Integrity. So thank you, John, for joining us today. I hope to have you on again soon.
I hope so too.
Great.
Much more to talk about.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching and listening to our Thought to Action podcast. If you like the program and would like to help us expand and create more content, please join our Patreon community at patreon.com/Thought to Action, where you can preview our Thought to Action broadcasts, as well as participate in our exclusive Ask Us Anything question and answer session. And please subscribe to Thought to Action on our YouTube channel, as well as keep subscribed, like, share, comment. It helps the algorithm, and monitor and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. So again, I'm Tony Shaffer, the president of the London Center for Policy Research, and thank you for joining us today for this discussion of accountability.